For 4 years of college, I never had to worry about money. That was all thanks to the trust fund kid in my program, who threw cash around like confetti. When we graduated, he was on top of the world, and I had nothing. 10 years later, I found him under a highway overpass, rag and broken, looking like any other homeless guy. I held out my business card. Weekends off, full benefits, 7-figure salary. You in? The first day of freshman year, the Austin sun was hot enough to melt the asphalt. I was hiding in the shade behind the dorm building, mechanically chewing on a stale bagel. My stomach was a hollow ache, and every dry cardboard-like bite was like swallowing sandpaper, scraping my throat raw. My name is Leo Vance. I was a scholarship kid from Forgotten Town in Ohio. My entire worldly possessions consisted of a battered suitcase, and the $87 in my pocket meant to last me the month. As I was mentally calculating how to stretch that cash, a flamboyant shadow fell over me, blocking out the light. The guy was decked out in head-to-toe designer streetwear. His hair dyed a platinum blonde that screamed for attention. He radiated an aura of obnoxious wealth. It was Chase Harrington, a guy from my intro to economics class. He studied me like I was a strange new species in a zoo, his eyes finally landing on the half-eaten bagel in my hand. His brow furrowed so deeply you could have lost a penny in it. "Dude, is that all you're eating?" I didn't say anything, just try to hide the bagel behind my back. The next second, he pulled a fat wallet from his ridiculously expensive jeans, peeled off 5 crisp $100 bills, and shoved them into my chest. They were brand new, smelling faintly of ink and money. I froze completely. "What are you doing?" Chase looked at me with the most matter-of-fact expression, tinged with an almost mystical reverence. My life coach had my aura read. She said that on the first day of school, I absolutely have to give money to someone with a strong or a sign. It's the only way to guarantee my dad's investment portfolio does well for the next 4 years. My name, Leo Vance. A Leo, Earth sign. I stared at him, feeling like I just stepped into a bizarre alternate reality. I was stunned, looking down at the $500 in my hand. The bills felt impossibly heavy, yet at the same time, completely unreal. My insides were a churning mess of pride and shame, but in the end, hunger won. I pocketed the money, my voice hoarse. "Thanks." And, thank your life coach. Chase clapped me on the shoulder, flashing a perfect, white smile. "No problem. Stick with me, man. I'll make sure you're living the good life." And just like that, the strangest chapter of my college life began. I became Chase Harrington's personal good luck charm. Every time he was about to start a Twitch stream, he'd Venmo me $200 to absorb my winning vibes. Before every midterm, he'd send me a $500 offering to the gray gods. Once, before he went to ask out the most popular girl in the communications department, he nervously sent me $1,000. "Chase Harrington, Leo, do quick. My dad's reviewing my pitch deck for a startup this Saturday. Like my latest Instagram post, so I can channel your lucky energy. Sending you $1,000. I opened Instagram and expertly tapped the heart icon. Me liked. Hope the pitch. Makes you rich even if it fails. He replied instantly with a crying laughing emoji. I would carefully deposit most of that money into my savings account. The rest, I take to the campus food court and order the most ridiculously loaded carnitas burrito bowl. The pork was slow cooked until it fell apart. The guacamole was extra, and the cilantro lime sour cream soaked into every grain of rice. The feeling of being full, of warm protein and fat filling my stomach, was enough to make me forget my pride for a little while. But this easy life looked very different to other people. One day, right after receiving my Instagram-like fee, I was heading to the food court when I ran into Ethan Prescott, the student government president. Ethan was the king of campus, a straight-A student from a wealthy family, classically handsome, and a guy every girl, including the one I had a quiet crush on, wanted to date. And speaking of my crush, Chloe, she was standing right next to him. Ethan's gaze was like a scalpel, landing precisely on my phone screen where the Venmo notification was still visible before flicking away. He let out a soft, contemptuous chuckle and said to Chloe, "Some people will do anything for money. No self-respect." His voice wasn't loud, but it felt like a needle straight to my heart. Chloe glanced at me, her expression a mix of disappointment and a faint, unmistakable disgust. My face burned. I clenched my phone so hard my knuckles turned white, my fingernails digging into my palm. but I didn't say a word. I walked past them without expression, heading straight for the food court. Dignity couldn't fill my stomach, but a burrito bowl could. At least the burrito bowl was warm and wouldn't make me feel cold inside and out. That night, Chase barged into my dorm room, waving a ridiculously glossy business plan. Leo, check it out. Pause on Demand. It's a pet sharing app for all the people who want a dog but can't commit. They can rent one for the weekend. It's genius. We're going to change the world. I looked into his eyes, sparkling with an earnest and idiotic excitement. I silently added this project to the dead on arrival list I kept in my head. Then I gave him a thumbs up. Genius. Totally going to change the world. 02 if Chase's previous cash doling was a source of private embarrassment. The grand romantic gesture he cooked up to win over Chloe resulted in my complete and utter public humiliation. One night, he spent a fortune arranging hundreds of candles on the main quad into the shape of a giant heart. But this being Austin in the fall, a brisk wind kept blowing them out. The scene was a pathetic mess of flickering, dying flames. Chase was sweating bullets as a crowd of students gathered, whispering and laughing at his failure. In a moment of inspiration, he whipped out his phone and called me. The moment I answered, his voice, amplified by the desperate hope of a drowning man finding a life raft, echoed across the entire quad. Leo, get to the quad now. My psychic said you're a wind element, but you can control it. You got to get over here and blow some of your magic mojo on these candles. I'll Venmo you $2,000. I was in the library, deep into a chapter of advanced C++ programming, and the call left me dumbfounded. By the time he'd coaxed and bribed me over to the quad, the sight of the massive crowd and the sputtering candles made me want the earth to swallow me whole. Chase shoved me into the center of the candle heart, his face a mask of desperate expectation. Hurry, you're my last hope, my good luck charm. Hundreds of pairs of eyes were fixed on me, their gazes filled with curiosity, amusement, and a morbid glee of people watching a train wreck. In that moment, I felt as if my skin had been peeled off and thrown on the ground for everyone to stomp on. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and pretended to blow a powerful gust of air at the pathetic wicks. And then the craziest thing happened. The exact moment I exhaled, the wind died down completely. Chase's frat brothers scrambled to relight the candles, and this time they stayed lit. The flames leaped up, illuminating Chase's ecstatic face. He threw his arms up in victory. It worked. It worked. I told you Leo was my secret weapon. In that instant, I became the laughingstock of the entire university. The nickname, the human leaf blower, stuck to me like glue for the rest of my college career. To make matters worse, Ethan and Chloe just happened to be passing by at that exact moment. He stood at the edge of the crowd, pointed at my pathetic figure, and said to Chloe and to everyone within earshot, in a voice dripping with mock pity, "See, that's Chase Harrington's little pet." He didn't get a finish. Chase, like an enraged lion, launched himself at Ethan and punched him squarely in the face. "You keep your damn mouth shut. Leo's my boy." Ethan stumbled back, a trickle of blood appearing at the corner of his mouth. He wiped it away, not angry, but with a cold, triumphant smile. "Your boy, a friend you bought with cash? Chase, besides throwing money around, what can you actually do?" He turned his venom on me. "You think you're helping him? You're just cutting away his dignity, piece by piece, turning him into a pathetic leech who can't survive without you." Every word from Ethan was a poison knife, twisting into my deepest insecurities. Chloe pulled Ethan away. She never looked at me again. The disappointment in her eyes hurt more than any insult. The crowd's murmuring grew louder. Chase's defense of me had only served to confirm their suspicions that I was his paid charity case. He came back over looking guilty. "Leo, don't worry about them. I've got your back." I looked at his sincere, clueless face, and for the first time, the money he gave me felt scorching hot. I realized this easy life came at a price. I couldn't go on like this. I had to stand on my own 2 feet in a way that no one could ever question. 03 the graduation bells were about to ring, filling the air with a mix of sentimental goodbyes and anxious uncertainty. Chase's career as a business visionary reached its peak that summer. His senior thesis was titled "The Application of Metaphysical Principles in Venture Capital and Its Philosophical Implications." I'll never forget our gray-haired, normally gentle economics professor, who, after listening to Chase's 15-minute presentation, looked like he was about to hurl his thermos at him. Absurd. This is a complete and utter mockery of economic science. Chase was unfazed. After getting chewed out by his advisor, he dragged me outside to excitedly lay out his post-graduation blueprint for world domination. Leo, my dad gave me $10 million in seed money. I'm going big. He ticked off his ideas on his fingers, his eyes gleaming with a light I could only describe as destined for bankruptcy. First, a subscription box for artisanal gluten-free dog treats. We'll use drones for delivery. I nodded. Solid. That's a winner. Mental note. The pet market is oversaturated. Avoid high-end luxury gimmicks. Then, I'm going to host beauty pageants for stray cats in upscale neighborhoods. My company will sponsor the winner with a lifetime supply of salmon pate. I kept nodding. Creative. Charitable. Mental note. Community projects with high costs and no revenue stream are a black hole. Don't touch. Finally, I'm buying a factory that makes smart water bottles that track your hydration and sync with your crypto wallet. It's essential tech. I fought to keep a straight face. Visionary. Mental note. The Internet of Things for novelty items is a graveyard for startup capital. For every idea he pitched, I offered my most enthusiastic, dishonest praise, all while adding another bold entry to my mental business landmine guide. These were all ideas that were, to put it mildly, dogs. At the graduation ceremony, Ethan Prescott gave the valedictorian speech. He was sharp and confident in a tailored suit, holding an offer letter from Vanguard Capital, one of the top investment firms on Wall Street. His eyes swept across the audience, and when they passed over Chase and me, they held the unmistakable smugness of a victor. The gap between us felt like the Grand Canyon. He was an eagle soaring in the sky. We were two clowns on the ground, wondering which way to go. At the graduation party at a bar downtown, everyone got wasted, a mess of tearful hugs and drunken goodbyes. Chase, his face flushed red, stumbled over to me. He pulled a debit card from his wallet and shoved it into my hand. Leo, there's $100,000 in here. Pin, is your birthday? I was stunned. You remember my birthday? He burped, then clapped me on the shoulder, so hard I nearly fell over. 4 years, man. Thanks for being my good luck charm. Gotta go make on my own now. Can't just Venmo you forever. This is your severance package. No, wait, your angel investment. I, Chase Harrington, am investing in you, Leo Vance. Remember me when you're famous. Okay, he slurred, grinning, though his eyes looked a little wet. I clutched the thin piece of plastic. It felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. It wasn't just $100,000. It was the sum of 4 years of my humiliation, my gratitude, my resentment, and my resolve. I watched Chase's staggering figure disappear into the crowd and made a silent vow. I would not only pay this money back, I would multiply it. Ethan Prescott and everyone else who ever looked down on me, just you wait. In 10 years, I'm going to learn who Leo Vance really is. 04 time is a one-way train, and 10 years flew by in a blur. After graduation, I took the $100,000 from Chase, added the $20,000 I'd scraped together, and dove headfirst into the one market everyone was ignoring. Overlooked blue-collar America. I started a small tech company. I called it Cornerstone Technologies. I wanted it to be solid, dependable, and built on substance, not hype. My entrepreneurial journey had a secret weapon no one else did. Chase Harrington's social media feed. It was a living, breathing encyclopedia of what not to do in business. Over 10 years, Chase's ventures were a spectacular series of failures, all documented on Instagram. He tried to launch a luxury pet brand, featuring an $8,000 self-cleaning litter box. I went in the opposite direction, creating a simple app for bulk buying affordable pet supplies. We hit profitability in the first year. He jumped on the metaverse bandwagon, blowing millions on a platform for virtual parties. I stayed in the real world, methodically opening a chain of board game cafes, one city at a time, generating a steady, enviable cash flow. He got obsessed with NFTs, spending a fortune on a pixelated picture of a monkey, proclaiming it the future of art. I partnered with small museums to create affordable, interesting merchandise based on their collections. They sold like crazy. He chased trends. I ran from them. What he thought was cool, I avoided like the plague. What he dismissed as boring, I studied intensely. I'd catch snippets of news about him from the alumni group chat. Heard Chase blew through the first 10 million his dad gave him. His dad gave him another 30. Tried to do a car-sharing thing with electric scooters, I think. Lost it all. Haven't heard from him since. Rumor is his family's company went under. Bankruptcy. Chase Harrington? He completely ghosted everyone. Vanished. And me? Leo Vance was no longer the broke kid gnawing on a stale bagel behind the dorms. People call me Mr. Vance now. My company was preparing to go public. I wore custom-tailored suits, worked out of a high-rise office tower, and gave interviews to financial magazines. I had made good on my promise. The only thing missing was finding the angel investor who'd given me my first break. One rainy autumn night, I was driving home from another pointless networking event. The downpour hammered against the windshield, blurring the city's neon lights. As my car passed under a highway overpass, a figure, both familiar and alien, caught my eye. A man was huddled in the darkest corner of the concrete shelter, knees pulled to his chest, soaked to the bone. His matted hair was plastered to his face. He looked like a stray dog abandoned by its owner. As pathetic as he looked, I recognized him instantly. Chase. My heart seized, as if gripped by an invisible hand. I pulled the car over, grabbed an umbrella, and stepped out into the storm. The cold rain instantly soaked the cuffs of my pants. I walked toward that dark corner, my leather shoes making dull thuds in the puddles. I stopped in front of him and crouched down, the wide black umbrella shielding him from the worst of the rain. He slowly lifted his head, his eyes vacant and unfocused. Rainwater, or maybe tears, streamed down his gaunt cheeks. When his gaze finally landed on my face, a violent tremor ran through his body. He recognized me. The next second, as if he'd been burned, he snapped his head down, tried to shrink into himself, to disappear into the concrete. It was the posture of absolute, soul-crushing shame. The proud, flamboyant trust fund kid no longer had the courage to even look me in the eye. I reached into the inner pocket of my suit jacket and pulled out my business card. Black cardstock, gold lettering. Leo Vance, CEO, Cornerstone Technologies. I held it out to him, my voice uncannily calm against the drumming of the rain. Weekends off, full benefits, 7-figure salary. You in. 05 in the end, Chase came with me. When I brought him to my penthouse apartment downtown, he stood frozen in the foyer, so awkward he didn't know what to do with his hands or feet. His soaking clothes dripped water onto the expensive rug. He tried to back away, but I grabbed his arm. Go take a shower. I'll have some clothes laid out for you. When he emerged from the bathroom, dressed in a clean, soft set of sweats, he finally looked a little more human. But his eyes were still dull, filled with a wariness and uncertainty about the world. The next day, I took him to the office. The position I created for him was Chief Strategic Advisor to the CEO. The announcement sent shockwaves through the company. The gossip around the espresso machine was rampant. Who is this guy? The CEO just found him. He looks lost. Doesn't have that executive vibe at all. I heard the boss literally picked him up from under an overpass last night. I gave him the corner office with the best view in the building, right next to mine. But on his first day, he was a spectacular 3 hours late. My assistant, CC, reported it hesitantly while I was reviewing a financial report. Mr. Vance, your new advisor, Mr. Harrington. He hasn't arrived yet. I didn't even look up. It's fine. When he gets here, just show him his office. Chase finally sauntered in around noon, yawning, looking like he'd just rolled out of bed. His excuse, slept horribly. Then I checked my horoscope. Mercury is in retrograde. Not an auspicious time for early mornings. The entire office stared at him like he was an alien. He couldn't make sense of a balance sheet, but he took an immediate and intense interest in the office's feng shui. Leo, this is all wrong. The lucky cat statue by the entrance. Its paw is up on the wrong side. The left paw is for wealth. The right paw is for people. Yours is the right paw. Plus, it's facing outward. You're just waving all your money away, he declared, shaking his head with the gravity of a surgeon delivering a grim diagnosis. I calmly buzzed my assistant. CC, please order a new lucky cat, left paw up, and make sure it's facing inward. I could hear her trying to stifle a laugh on the other end of the line. Right away, Mr. Vance. That afternoon, we had a major project review meeting. I had Chase sit in. He sat next to me as a project manager gave a slick PowerPoint presentation. Within minutes, Chase's eyes were glazing over, and he was struggling to stay awake. Right at the end of the meeting, a keyword must have pierced his sleepy haze. He shot up from his chair and shouted, "I know this one. Community-sourced grocery delivery. I had that idea years ago. This is going to be huge." The entire boardroom fell into a dead silence. Every executive, including the project manager on stage, turned to look at me, their faces a canvas of confusion and alarm. I slowly closed the folder in front of me, my voice quiet but firm. "This project is dead. Next." Chase stared at me, completely bewildered. "What? Why? It feels right. It's totally the next big thing." I looked at him, my expression unreadable. "Precisely because it feels right to you, it has to die. Your feeling is this company's biggest red flag." Chase Harrington approved was my new code for canceled immediately. Though he was down on his luck, Chase hadn't lost his entitled habits. He complained that the office coffee machine produced a subpar brew and demanded a pour-over setup. He found the afternoon pastries too sugary and requested custom-made macarons from a five-star hotel. I instructed HR to grant his every request. I was happy to pay him a seven-figure salary and cater to his whims. All I was buying was that one priceless phrase, "I've got a good feeling about this." It was the best deal I'd ever made. 06. Our company was in the middle of negotiating a major partnership. The other party was a hot new player in the industry, controlling the online user traffic we desperately needed. After several rounds, it was time for the heads of both companies to meet. That day, I was in our main conference room with my senior team, waiting. When the door opened and the man leading the other delegation strode in, impeccably dressed, oozing elite confidence, my blood ran cold. It was Ethan Prescott. He looked even more polished and successful than he had 10 years ago. Time had gifted him the easy self-assurance of a man who always wins. He saw me and froze for a split second. Then, a slow, knowing smile spread across his face. "Leo Vance. I have to say, I never expected the CEO of Cornerstone to be you." His eyes lingered on me for a moment before shifting, like a predator spotting more interesting prey. They moved past me and landed on Chase, who was standing just behind me. In that instant, Ethan's surprise morphed into the cruel, playful look of a cat that's just cornered a mouse. Well, if it isn't the great Chase Harrington," Ethan said, his voice loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. "What are you doing here? Did Leo hire you for an internship?" The color drained from Chase's face, leaving a sickly pallor that started at his cheeks and spread to his ears. He instinctively tried to shrink back, his body rigid. It was the first time since he'd started working for me that he was in a professional setting with an outsider. Ethan wasn't about to let up. He strolled over to Chase, and just like he had on the quad a decade ago, he clapped him heavily on the shoulder. His tone was light, but thick with condescending concern. "Remember college, Chase? I told you money couldn't buy you a future. I guess you believe me now, huh?" He turned back to me, the malice in his smile practically dripping. "Leo, it's admirable that you're loyal to old friends. But a company isn't a charity. You need to be careful who you hire. You don't want unprofessional elements, damaging your brand." A few of the people Ethan brought with him snickered. My own team members shifted uncomfortably, their faces tight with embarrassment. It was a naked, calculated humiliation. Ethan wasn't just attacking Chase. He was attacking me, questioning my judgment and professionalism as the CEO of a company on the verge of an IPO. Chase's lips trembled. He balled his hands in a fist so tight his knuckles were white. He was drowning in shame and rage. He spun around, ready to flee the room that had become his personal torture chamber. I shot out my hand and clamped it down on his shoulder. It was a firm, steadying grip. Chase turned back, looking at me with confusion. I didn't look at him. My eyes were locked on Ethan, and a slow, cold smile spread across my face. "Ethan, it seems you have a misunderstanding about my company's organizational structure." My voice was calm, but it dropped into the tense silence of the room like a stone in a still pond. Ethan raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing on his lips, clearly waiting to see how I'd try to spin this. My hand didn't leave Chase's shoulder. Instead, I pulled him forward slightly, so we were standing side by side. Let me reintroduce you, I said, smiling at Ethan. You're mistaken. This man isn't my employee. He's my partner and a lifetime honorary advisor for Cornerstone Technologies, Mr. Chase Harrington. Partner? Ethan scoffed as if I'd just told the funniest joke of the century. Him, the business prodigy who single-handedly bankrupted his own family. His team laughed along with him. My smile didn't falter. It widened. Yes, him. I spoke each word with deliberate clarity. The only reason this company is where it is today, the reason we've sidestepped countless landmines on our path to success, is thanks entirely to Mr. Harrington's unique and unparalleled strategic foresight. Ethan's face was a mask of disbelief. His strategic foresight? That's right, I said, nodding emphatically. I then turned to address everyone in the room, my employees, my executives, and Ethan's stunned delegation. Since Mr. Prescott is here today, allow me to reveal our company's most valuable trade secret, our core decision-making principle. Any project Mr. Harrington is excited about is to be immediately canceled. Any idea he finds ridiculous is to be given top priority. Internally, we have a name for Mr. Harrington. We call him our Chief Strategic Landmine Detector. A wave of shock rippled through the room. My own team's jaws dropped, their faces lighting up with sudden, dawning comprehension. Ethan and his team's laughter died in their throats, replaced by expressions of utter bewilderment. Chase himself was staring at me, dumbfounded, as if seeing me for the first time. Ignoring their reactions, I picked up a dossier from the table. Our team's comprehensive report on Ethan's company's recent investments. I slapped it down and pointed to a specific project. For example, the Smart Charging Station 2. 0-foot projector company poured millions in the last year. It was pitched as a green tech revolution, but was, in reality, a money-burning pit. I looked at Ethan. I remember it clearly. When Chase saw the news about it, he slapped his thigh and said it was the most brilliant thing he'd ever seen, that would change the way people live. As a result, the investment committee at Cornerstone held an emergency meeting that night and dodged a bullet that ended up costing countless venture firms a fortune. The color drained from Ethan's face. That project had been his baby, and its spectacular failure had cost him his annual bonus. I wasn't finished. Or how about the automated convenience store craze from the year before? Chase told me with breathless excitement that it was the future of retail. After hearing his endorsement, I immediately shut down a similar pilot program we had in development, saving us at least $30 million in R&D costs. With every example I gave, Ethan's expression grew more tortured. Because every project I mentioned was a colossal failure he or his parent company, Vanguard Capital, had been involved in, facts my team had uncovered during our due diligence. I walked right up to Ethan and, mimicking his earlier gesture, gently patted him on the shoulder. You see, Ethan, you only saw the money Chase lost for his family. You never saw how every one of his feelings saved Cornerstone from catastrophic risk. His business instincts are a perfect reverse indicator. He is a priceless, walking, talking short sell signal. He is our human North Star, pointing us firmly away from disaster. So yes, I pay him a 7-figure salary. I give him the best office and every perk imaginable. What I'm buying is his feeling. Now, I said, looking him dead in the eye, do you still think my company is a charity? I pull my hand back. Ethan's face was a mottled mess of red and white. His greatest source of pride, his business acumen, had just been dismantled and ridiculed in the most absurd, undeniable way possible. It was a far deeper wound than a simple insult. So, Ethan, I said with a polite smile, gesturing to the table, about that partnership, are we still talking? Ethan stared at me, then at the completely petrified Chase. Without another word, he turned on his heel and, along with his team, walked out of the conference room. His retreat was anything but graceful. The moment the door clicked shut, my team could no longer contain themselves. A thunderous explosion of laughter and applause erupted, echoing through the entire floor. 08 after Ethan's humiliating retreat, a triumphant, almost giddy atmosphere filled the conference room. Chase, however, stood frozen like a statue. He slowly turned to look at me, his eyes wide with a dazed, disbelieving wonder. Am I really that good? He asked, his voice trembling slightly, like a kid who just found out he has superpowers. I walked over to him, looked him dead in the eye with the utmost seriousness, and nodded once. "One of kind. Chase," I said, "you were blessed by the gods of business. They just happened to put their seal of approval on you upside down. Your value is immeasurable." Those words were like a key unlocking something deep inside him. The fog of self-loathing and confusion in his eyes vanished, replaced by a kind of defiant, self-aware confidence. From that day on, Chase Harrington had a renaissance. He had finally found his unique place in the world and embraced his role as chief strategic landmine detector with unprecedented passion. He stopped coming in late. He'd stroll through the office with his hands clasped behind his back like a general reviewing his troops. He'd burst into department meetings to offer his unsolicited and now highly coveted opinions. "This idea is terrible. It's boring. No vision. This is brilliant. I can practically hear the opening bell at NASDAQ." The project teams began to treat him like a revered oracle. Every morning, product managers would line up outside his office with their latest proposals. "Mr. Harrington, could you take a look at our new app concept, a social network for senior citizens?" Chase would scan the document, then wave his hand dismissively. "Amazing. Absolutely brilliant. You're solving a major societal problem. Caring for the elderly. This is great karma. It has my full support." The product manager would snatch the proposal back as if it were a winning lottery ticket and sprint back to his desk. "We got it. Chase loves it. Everyone pivot. Pivot hard. We need to make the user interface more confusing, add more pointless features, and market it to millennials to manage for their parents. Behind a paywall." Under Chase's visionary leadership, our company flawlessly navigated around one fatal business trap after another. His crowning achievement came during an acquisition deal. We were looking to buy an emerging AI firm. The founders had Ivy League credentials. The tech seemed revolutionary, and the financials were flawless. Everyone thought it was a golden opportunity. I sent Chase along with the due diligence team to check them out. He came back in a state of near-manic excitement, bursting into my office with his face flushed. "Leo, this company is insane. The founder is the next Steve Jobs. Their tech is so advanced, I don't even understand it, which means it must be incredible. We have to buy them. We have to mortgage the whole company if we have to." He gushed, practically vibrating with enthusiasm. I listened calmly to his assessment, then picked up my phone and halted the entire acquisition process. Effective immediately, I want a deep dive forensic audit of that company. Verify every line of the founder's resume and cross-reference their raw data. I want every single pixel examined. My team was baffled by the order, but carried it out. A week later, the results came in. The brilliant AI company was a complete fraud. The founders' degrees were fake, the revolutionary tech was just a concept, and all their data was fabricated. Their entire goal was to secure a massive acquisition payout and disappear. If I had trusted the initial report and signed the papers, Cornerstone Technologies would have lost $500 million, a blow that would have crippled, if not destroyed, us. At the next executive meeting, I publicly commended Chase. "Thanks to the keen risk sensitivity of our advisor, Mr. Harrington, this company has avoided a catastrophic loss. I am therefore awarding him a special bonus of $1 million. When I handed the oversized check to Chase, this man in his 30s broke down and cried. He wept like a child, a messy, noisy mix of sobbing and laughing. "Leo, I finally earned something. On my own." He choked out between sobs. I looked at him, a lump forming in my own throat. "Yes, you did, Chase. You finally proved your own worth in the most unexpected way imaginable." 09. Ethan Prescott was not the type to accept defeat gracefully. He was a snake, and when cornered, he would strike back with venom. Soon, Cornerstone Technologies faced the greatest crisis in its history. Ethan convinced his backers at Vanguard Capital to launch a hostile takeover bid for our company. Vanguard was a titan of industry with bottomless pockets. Their offer was aggressive and highly attractive, sending shockwaves through the market. Simultaneously, Ethan used his connections to start poaching our key talent. He offered triple the salary and massive stock options, targeting our chief technology officer and the core members of our algorithm team. Under that kind of pressure, loyalty has its limits. Within a week, my CTO submitted his resignation, taking 3 of our best engineers with him. The turmoil in our tech department, combined with the news of the hostile takeover, hit the market like a 1-2 punch. Cornerstone's stock plummeted. For 3 consecutive days, it hit the limit down at the opening bell. Panic spread through the company. Our investors, once our biggest cheerleaders, started calling me, pressuring me to accept Vanguard's offer. Take the money and run, Leo. Cash out while you can. Right on cue, Ethan called me. His voice was oozing with the smug satisfaction of a victor. I told you you'd regret it, Leo. How does it feel to be on the losing side? I'll give you one last chance. Sell me your shares. For old time's sake, I'll even let you stay on as a VP. He paused for effect. As for that useless waste of space, Chase Harrington, he's the first one I'll fire. My company doesn't carry dead weight. Listening to his gloating laughter, I felt a wave of disgust. Go to hell, Ethan. I hung up. His parting shot, "You'll regret this," still echoed in my ear. For the next few days, I lived at the office, surviving on caffeine and adrenaline. The lights in my office never went out. The ashtray overflowed. I stared out at the city lights, feeling the crushing weight of it all for the first time. My company, the thing I had poured my entire soul into for 10 years, was I about to lose it all to a person like Ethan? Late one night, Chase quietly entered my office with a cup of coffee. He didn't say a word. He just placed the mug on my desk and sat down on the sofa across from me, keeping a silent vigil. It was the first time he had ever seen me look so exhausted, so vulnerable. He didn't know how to help, so he just offered his presence, a quiet, unwavering show of support. Looking at the genuine concern in his eyes, I felt a flicker of warmth. No, I couldn't lose, not just for myself, but for this idiot who had always, in his own strange way, treated me like a brother. I had to find a way out, a way to turn the tables, to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Tim, my core team, and I spent days locked in the boardroom, brainstorming until we were running on fumes. The room was thick with smoke, the whiteboard a chaotic mess of strategies that were drawn up and then immediately erased. Against a behemoth like Vanguard Capital, every conventional tactic felt like bringing a knife to a gunfight. We were out of money, out of people, and out of time. The mood was bleak. Despair hung heavy in the air. Just as we'd all lapsed into a defeated silence, Chase, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, finally spoke up. "Leo, what if we—" He scratched his head, his expression dead serious, as he offered the most insane idea I had ever heard. "What if we just give the company to the government?" Everyone stared at him as if he had sprouted a second head. One of the VPs couldn't help but let out a snort of laughter. "Chase, are you drunk or just sleep-deprived?" But Chase was completely earnest. "No, think about it. If we become a state-owned enterprise, Vanguard can't touch us, right? Who's going to launch a hostile takeover of a government entity? Plus, we'd be patriots." The room erupted in laughter. It was, without a doubt, the most ludicrous business proposal of the decade. But I wasn't laughing. I was frozen. His words were like a bolt of lightning, illuminating a path through the darkness. Give it away was nonsense, of course. But the core concept, giving it away, that was the key. What did Ethan and Vanguard want? They wanted to acquire our company cheap to get their hands on our most valuable asset, our proprietary algorithm for analyzing consumer behavior in underserved markets. It was our secret sauce, built on a decade of data. It was our fortress. What if that fortress was no longer exclusive? What if our stock became worthless or even a liability? Their entire motivation for the takeover would vanish. A plan, as audacious as it was terrifying, began to form in my mind. I shot to my feet, my eyes blazing with a wild, desperate energy. "I've got it." I gathered my most trusted team members into a secure room and laid out my plan. We were going to open source our core algorithm. We're giving it to the world. For free. The room was filled with sharp intakes of breath. "Leo, are you insane? That's corporate suicide. We'd be tearing down our own walls. The company would be finished." "Exactly. The second we do that, our competitive advantage is gone. The stock will crash to zero. Ethan won't even have to buy us. We'll just cease to exist." I looked at their terrified faces, my voice ringing with conviction. "No, this isn't suicide. This is rising from the ashes. In the short term, yes, we're cutting off our own arm. The stock will tank. But that arm is the only thing Vanguard wants. When it's no longer valuable, their takeover becomes a joke. In the long term, by opening our source code, we invite thousands of developers from around the world to improve and build upon our algorithm. We'll transform from a tech company into a platform. We will build an ecosystem so vast and powerful that no one can destroy it. Ethan poached our CTO to copy our algorithm, right? Fine. I'll just publish it for the entire world to see. Let's see how he copies it then. It was the biggest gamble of my life. If it worked, we'd be stronger than ever. If it failed, we'd lose everything. But it was the only move we had left. The room was deathly quiet, everyone stunned by the sheer madness of the idea. Finally, I looked at Chase. He didn't understand the technical jargon or the market dynamics, but he understood the look of fierce determination in my eyes. I walked over to him and put a hand on his shoulder. "Chase," I said, my voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you. Thank you for giving me a truly suicidal idea that inspired a plan for our salvation." 3 days later, Cornerstone Technologies held an emergency online press conference. I stood under the bright lights, facing the cameras of 100 media outlets, and calmly announced a decision that would send an earthquake through the industry. Effective immediately, Cornerstone Technologies will be permanently and freely open sourcing our core Pathfinder algorithm system to the public. The market erupted. Everyone thought I had lost my mind. The next morning, as expected, our stock didn't just fall, it cratered. Down 90%. Billions in market capitalization vanished in a single day. The headlines were brutal. Cornerstone CEO Leo Vance commits epic corporate suicide, destroys 10-year legacy. My phone blew up with furious calls from investors, screaming and cursing at me. Ethan's call came, too. He was laughing so hard he could barely breathe. Leo, I never thought you could be this stupid. You saved me the trouble and destroyed your own company. Ha ha, you're a joke. A complete and utter joke." I said nothing and quietly ended the call. Meanwhile, Vanguard Capital, which had taken a massive short position on our stock, was now in deep trouble. Their plan was to drive the price down, then buy up the shares for pennies on the dollar. They never imagined I would voluntarily detonate the company's core value. A tech company without its proprietary tech was just an empty shell. Their short position was so large that when they tried to cover it, they found there weren't enough shares available to buy. The stock was frozen at the bottom, locked in a death spiral. They were trapped, bleeding millions a day in interest payments, their paper losses mounting into the billions. Just when the world had written us off, the tide began to turn. 3 days after we went open source, our project on GitHub shot to the #1 trending spot globally. Tens of thousands of developers downloaded our code, used it, and submitted thousands of bug fixes and improvements. An ecosystem was forming faster than I could have ever dreamed. A week later, even bigger news broke. A national research lab, funded by the Department of Defense, officially announced a deep strategic partnership with Cornerstone Technologies. Together, we would be developing a new, secure, national-level data analytics platform based on our open-source technology. The announcement was a nuclear bomb in the financial markets. The federal government was backing us. Our technology now had the highest possible seal of approval. Cornerstone's stock, which had been flatlining, rebounded with a vengeance. Up the daily limit. Then again and again. 10 consecutive days of hitting the market ceiling. Our valuation didn't just recover. It tripled. My suicidal gambit had resulted in the most spectacular comeback story of the decade. Ethan and Vanguard Capital were completely wiped out. The technology Ethan had schemed to steal was now free for everyone, making his poached tech team worthless. The catastrophic failure of the takeover attempt caused a massive shakeup at Vanguard. The board was furious and placed the entire blame on Ethan. He was fired. Worse, Vanguard sued him for fraud and gross negligence, seeking to recover hundreds of millions in damages. Overnight, Ethan Prescott went from being a Wall Street prodigy to a pariah, buried under a mountain of legal fees and debt. He had lost everything. There would be no coming back. The crisis was over. Cornerstone Technologies was more successful and respected than ever before. We threw a massive celebration party for the whole company. At the height of the party, I stood on the stage and made an announcement. I called Chase up and handed him a document. It was a share transfer agreement. I was unconditionally transferring 10% of my personal stake in the company to him. "You earned this," I said into the microphone. "My chief strategic landmine detector. My partner. My good luck charm." Chase stared at the document, at the long string of zeros that represented a life-changing fortune. His hands began to shake. And then, in front of everyone, this grown man burst into tears, wailing like a child. He threw his arms around me, his body racked with sobs. "Leo, I thought my life was over. I thought I was worthless." I held him tight, patting his back, my own eyes stinging. "Never. Your career as a business genius is just getting started." Later, I heard what happened to Ethan. During its internal investigation, Vanguard had uncovered a history of resume padding and corporate espionage. Not only was he financially ruined, but he was also blacklisted from the entire industry. The man who had built his life on arrogance and stepping on others was ultimately consumed by his own ambition. On a perfect, sunny weekend, I drove Chase back to our old university campus. A decade had passed, but not much had changed. We sat on the steps by the main quad, just as we had countless afternoons all those years ago. The sun felt warm and lazy on our skin. Chase pulled a lollipop from his pocket, unwrapped it, and stuck in his mouth. Then he leaned over to me conspiratorially. "Leo, listen, I've had another amazing idea." His eyes were bright, full of that old, familiar, and terrifying spark of creative self-destruction. "Okay, picture this, shared consciousness. We create a device that extracts brain waves from smart people and sells them as a subscription service. What do you think? Genius, right?" I looked at his face, flushed with excitement, and smiled. The sun was shining. The breeze was gentle. My meal ticket, no, my brother, my partner, had finally found the perfect way to make his mark on the world. And I would always be there right behind him, as his biggest supporter and his most faithful reverse indicator.